You're still watching TVC Breakfast. Now, Africa's film industry is experiencing a moment of global recognition with its stories, talent, and creativity. Yet, despite this rising visibility, the full potential of the continent's film ecosystem remains largely untapped. Unlocking the industry's potential requires strategic investments in sustainable financing models, stronger regional distribution systems, and supportive policies that protect and promote local content. The Africa Film Finance Forum aims to unlock the African film industry, estimated at $20 billion potential, by connecting financiers, industry leaders, creativities, and policymakers with the right structures in place. Now, Africa's film industry can become a powerful force for economic growth, cultural preservation, and global storytelling. Joining us for this conversation is seasoned film executive, strategic leader, and CEO, Okma Global, Mary Ephraim. Good morning, Mary. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm well, thank you.
How's it going? I'm good. It's so good to have you on the show this morning.
Thank you.
All right, now we're talking about the Africa Film, Finance Forum, and oftentimes we hear a lot about forums like this, but they just happen. At the end of the day, we see nothing happening. But we see that this, you all are very passionate about it. We want to know, what is the key of this? What are some of the objectives, and what are the problems it's going to solve at the end of the day? After this forum, what are we going to look at and say, okay, now we can see the film industry doing really well and finance has been pushed into it?
All right, thank you so much. For the Africa Film Finance Forum, our mission is to close the gap between financing and, in the industry, basically. And yes, the industry has accessed finance in the past, so it's not that it hasn't accessed, but there is a lot of challenges around financing. Typically, from the finance side of things, there's a lot of weariness in financing. There's a lot of anxiousness in understanding, how they're going to get return on investment. And of course, this is creating a situation where the kind and type of financing that should be injected into the industry to boost it to its next level is not seen. So that's what we aim to do first. To make sure that there is a clear understanding from the finance side how to invest in the industry, to understand better the film industry and how it works, or how it should work, and where they should really invest to make a lot of money. And on the other side, there's also the understanding of the finance industry from the film side of things. The expectations sometimes could be, different. There may be some expectations that are realistic, I would say, or just does not align with how the finance industry would like things to happen. So this bringing together these two entities and finding the middle ground to which we would be able to move forward, it's quite important. And that's why we set up for the Africa Film Finance Forum, in which we now have the summit and the marketplace to help with access to funds, to demystify access to funding, and to demystify the film industry and how to promote or how to invest in the film industry.
Now, we've had other initiatives before now to deal with the financing of the film industry in Nigeria and in Africa. But just like my colleague said earlier on, they come and they don't stay, some for one reason or the other, they bow out. So my question is, how does your organization define its long-term role in the African film industry?
So basically, well, there hasn't been much of financing. I suppose there's been a lot of conversation around growing the industry. And we decided that there needs to be a strategic understanding of the financing of the industry as to just the growth of the industry, which is good. That has actually paved the way for most of what you have seen, which would be why the industry is where it is right now. Now, our strategy is very key. We need the industry, the finance industry, to really understand how it works. And this we do not just by the summit, We've had trainings up until now. We started a training series called Banking on Film, which we have trained up to 15 banks and financiers at the moment, and we hope to keep up with this training. So with the summit, it's not just with the forum, with the Africa Film Finance Forum, it's not just an event. It's a series of activities that would guide and help the industry to achieving its potential. So whether it's trainings for the financiers, whether it's executive tours to meet with their counterparts in other regions and put heads together, whether it's policy exchange and having those close conversations with the government to create the kind of policies that help the financing and help the industry itself, whether it's negotiations and basically just consulting, helping the industry to move from where it is in terms of its financing lacks and to move into a big ticket financing, because that's what the industry needs to elevate, to move to the next level. So that's the difference here. We're not just going to talk in a summit and then be done with it, but there are a series of activities which we've already started, like the training I mentioned.
In specific terms, I would like for you to expatiate for us on the kind of transformations the AFFF seek to achieve when it comes to driving in the way of African films that are financed and supported.
Sorry, could you take that again?
I said in more specific terms, I want to see the kind of, I want you to expatiate on the kind of transformation that AFFF is trying to catalyze, when it comes to financing, financing and all of those things that you're bringing on board.
So typically, I mean, like I recall having a conversation with one of the MDs of the banks, and he said to me, "We don't understand your industry," right? So it's important. First, there's a knowledge gap. There is a big knowledge gap within the finance ecosystem in understanding how to position for this industry. And you hear comments like, "Oh, how do we get our money back? We don't understand. We can't wait." There are different systems, or rather there are different ways to actually finance the industry that is not being done at the moment. So I'll give you an instance, right? There is the use of completion bond to help with de-risking when it comes to giving money to the industry, right? So one of the issues is, I gave money and I don't know if the film is going to be made or how it's going to be made, etc. And so in terms of financing production. Now, in this country, we do not have much of, I stand to be corrected, but I have checked with a lot of insurance companies. They do not know anything about completion bonds. Now, if you do not have completion bonds, then there is a challenge, because there is no way for the banks to have some level of insurance. And the fallback would always be things like, go and bring your house, go and bring your grandmother, go and bring all those things that are not realistic. And while this is not realistic, for instance, if someone is going to do a movie that would cost the person, let's say $10 million, and I'm just pushing the boundaries here because really, realistically, to do a good movie, you need a lot of money, all right? And to compete in the landscape, the global landscape of the film industry, in the cinemas or anywhere else, you need to do a good film, and that costs a lot of money. Now, to give out that kind of money, right, what property would I give for $10 million as a middle or starter level filmmaker, or even as an established filmmaker, really? So that's not the solution, and that is one of the issues. How do the finance industry de-risk on their investments? And this could be one of the things that enlightenment that has to come into play within the industry, where we also bring the insurance companies involved in de-risking. So I'm happy the other day I heard about the NCGC, which is supposed to be a government agency that helps with credit guarantee. And we're talking to them to see how they can also support and structure around. So there's a lot of activities within the finance industry that needs to shift a little bit to accommodate the way film works. And I'm not just speaking about production, there's also infrastructure. There is not enough distribution platforms to allow for good return on investment. So there needs to be a lot of focus on infrastructure growth. There needs to be a lot, and I'm talking about cinemas, studios, etc. And there's also the distribution aspect as well, where there's funding for film acquisitions and also film travel. Like, it's expensive to get your movies shown in other territories. It costs a lot of logistics. So all these activities need to be funded, and these investments also need to be, there needs to be some assurance around getting the return on investment.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mary. I must say, you know your onions. Now, we know that the arts are a collaborative effort. We know the arts are a collaborative effort. So my question is, who are the primary stakeholders that the Africa Film Finance Forum is designed to serve? And how are their needs being creatively addressed to ensure that these funds get to the parts of the film industry that need them the most?
Absolutely. So our stakeholders are really between the film industry and the finance industry. And within the film industry, we're talking about producers, directors, actors. We're talking about distributors, film distributors, platforms, studios, etc. These all require financing. And then, of course, on the other side of the stakeholders will be the banks, the investors, the private equity investors, etc. So these are our stakeholders within the Africa Film Finance Forum's focus. And these stakeholders, there needs to be a handshake, just like you mentioned. There needs to be a lot of collaboration. There needs to be a lot of knowledge exchange. There needs to be a lot of understanding. But to close the dots, or rather to make sure that we have a strategic alliance. That's why we created this platform, to enable those kind of conversations to happen, to enable the stakeholders to also understand from the finance sector exactly how it should work, or how they perceive the industry, and find a balance to it. So there's a lot of shared knowledge, and I keep talking about knowledge first because that also seems to be a really huge gap that is not enabling the kind of financing that we should see.
All right, Mary, I'm really happy that we're getting to talk about this right now, because when it comes to creativity, film and all of that, in every country, it stands tall. And when we talk about storytelling, in Nigeria, I think that we do really well. We have beautiful stories, and nobody can tell our stories like we can tell it. But oftentimes you see that these stories go down the drain. These people have great stories, but financing and so many reasons make we do not get to hear the stories. And then we see the outsiders come to tell our own story, and it doesn't even make sense. So in terms of accountability, if these monies are given, how do we hold people accountable as well? And also, I know you spoke about it, but I really want you to elaborate on the long term of this forum. Because a lot of people have lost faith when we talk about forums like this, because we see them happen and nothing happens. So I just want you to quickly elaborate on that as well for me.
Okay, thank you. So the first aspect which you talked about in terms of what measures can be taken to ensure that there is return on investment. Absolutely. So that is very important. It is accountability, integrity is very important in this industry to keep the financing coming in. And like I said to the bank, there are different measures, right? For instance, and I'll just give a really direct example. Instead of a financier, for instance, you're financing a project, instead of just giving out the funds for the entirety of the project, and with no follow-ups, with no one basically, working through with the production or working through with the infrastructure to make sure that what has been agreed comes to brings, it's what you would see at the end of the day. That can be a challenge. So for the production, for instance, you can have an escrow account, all right? And if you have an escrow account and you have triggers, you have performance triggers. So if we said this film is going to take us 2-3 months to activate or to shoot, and within that we have we have four processes to film. So you have the development stage. So within that escrow account, you can actually release funds in trenches. So as the project performs, you're able to release the funds as it performs. But that also means that the banks need to be working with experts, with people that understand production. And so what we encourage banks to do is to then have, whether it's banks or financiers, basically investors, to work closely with the industry experts, find the people that know what they're doing, right? And that's why we at the Africa Film Finance Forum set up a consulting consortium, which we have a pool of experts in film financing. We have a pool of experts in film financing, and this can be a way of ensuring that the relationship between the financier and any stakeholder within the film industry, that you're able to get your return on investment, because we will make sure that the process, we take you through the processes right from the beginning, assessing the project to know whether it's going to give you the return on investment, making the adjustments that is needed, etc.
Now thinking about the information gap between the financiers and the producers of film, you guys have a very tall order. You have a lot of work to do. So if that is the case, 1, 2, 3, 5 years from now, what would happen for you to say you were successful in your endeavor?
Well, for us, more cinemas, definitely. More, if we have more cinemas, then more investments in film platforms and infrastructure, more cinemas, more streamers, more opportunities for films to travel, to go global, better productions. I mean, we have good ones. We still need more of that. Competing on the global space, definitely, because when the investment comes, like she said, we do have the stories, we have them. So if Wakanda, for instance, could be filmed in the States and enjoyed everywhere in Africa, then definitely we have the opportunity to also do globally accepted movies where we can also bring the money home. So investments in those type of films, having bigger ticket films, will definitely be one of the things that we're looking out for. That the fact that the confidence of the financiers to actually finance the movies or finance the industry will also be something that we would really want to see. And good returns. Also seeing the financiers happy and talking about the industry as a very viable investment opportunity will definitely be one of the things that we're looking forward to. So the contribution of the film industry to Africa's GDP, that increase is what we're looking at, because currently the global industry is valued at about $136 billion, and Africa only contributes less than 1%. So a move in that will be very key to us. I mean, if in 5 years we're able to contribute up to 5% of the global value of the film industry, then we know that we've really done something.
Right. In the craze for, yes, we want to tap from the billion-dollar industry, talk about the African films. I'm bothered about the kind of value that we also share because, you know, for instance, as a Yoruba person, we talk about the Omoluabi concept, the way African parents, you know, raise their children. We don't get to see some of those things, you know, in movies nowadays. So I want you to answer that, you know, vis-a-vis the issue of, you know, the AFFF aspiration to influence areas such as policy advocacy, distribution networks, or capacity building within this huge industry.
So pushing the African narrative, which I think is what you said, so it's important because just like music is changing the culture globally in terms of the acceptance of whether it's our pidgin language or, you know, or our clothing, you know, the entertainment industry has the influence capacity to actually showcase and influence the rest of the world with our own perspective of how to do life, or how, you know, whether it's from clothing to speaking to even, just like you said, you know, I mean, even on social media, you find the African mother. This is how the African mother would do it. This is how you know, things like that. So absolutely, the narrative, our narrative, you know, and obviously our the best of what is Africa can easily travel with film and also be a very big influence in the global stage. Now, what we can do to create that catalyst is, example, part of the conversations that we're having at the AFFF summit and markets. And I would speak a little bit about the markets and how the structure of the market should be. But at the summit, and we're not just talking about film, we've also brought in other industries. We've brought in the sports industry. We've brought in the health industry. And we're bringing them into conversation to say, listen, our stories are wide. They're wider than just comedy. You know, there is the health, there is the influence of film in our health sector. There is the influence of film in our tourism sector. There is the influence of film in our sports industry, for instance. So there is so much that we can be telling, you know, and if we have the opportunity to use film as a catalyst, even for some of these industries, to project our sports guys. I heard you guys talking about our sports, you know, it can really create a very big hype and motivation for them. You know, who's telling their story within the health sector, within even our political sector. You know, there is so much room for our narratives to be curated through film and actually help us push also launder image in terms of Africa and let people see who we truly are, etc. Now I was going to talk about the markets, you know. So we do have what we call the film finance market. It's the first of its kind, even in Africa. And the idea is that this is a zone, or this is a space, a marketplace where... Can
you hear me? Mary, do I still have you there? Okay, I guess it's the network. But it's just beautiful that we're having conversations about the creative industry and talking about movies as well. Like I was telling her, Olamide, we have, okay, I think we have Mary back. Mary, do we have you back?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm sorry, my connection must have been off.
Go ahead.
So I was talking about the film finance market. I'm not sure if you heard that.
We did.
So I was saying that we want to grow this market to the point where we have investment from all over the world accessing the African IP, which is the intellectual property of film, where people can come from, money can come from outside of the continent and come to invest in our stories and also, you know, pay for our IP. And, you know, instead of just sitting back and telling our stories in their own way, but actually access the stories from us and do the production and a lot of collaborations in terms of filmmaking, collaborating with other countries. We see what our minister is doing, creating a lot of collaborative efforts within other countries, which allows for things like tax rebates and so on and so forth. Also encouraging a lot of other people to come into the country to produce in the country also allows us to access more finance.
All right, Mary, are you there? Mary, okay, I think we lost her there. But it's just beautiful that we get to talk about this. And I love the fact we spoke about storytelling. At the end of the day, we can... Okay, Mary, please take your final shot.
Okay,
Mary,
can you hear me?
Okay, yes, I can hear you now.
Yes.
Yes.
Could you land on your thoughts?
Just land on your thoughts quickly before we wrap this up.
Oh, okay. Yes, I was just saying that we get to see all this international money come into Africa and basically access our IP on this side, and also a co-collaboration in terms of production. All right, and that would enable us to access even better skill, access, have an exchange of skill and knowledge, because the more people come to produce their films in Africa, they get to use our actors, they get to work with our technical guys, and they get to exchange knowledge and all that. So there's a whole lot more than just our production, but we need to encourage more production to come from outside to also and of course, you know, when production is done in Africa or in Nigeria or anywhere else, there's a lot of money that is also spent in those locations, whether it's our hotels, whether it's transportation. It has a big influence on the financing of that locality. So these are all the things that we at the film finance market are really pushing to create collaborations, to bring
Thank you so much, Mary. What a beautiful conversation. Thank you so much. But one thing I want to tell you that they should speak on is also telling the right stories, because oftentimes some of the stories that they tell do not portray Africa, what Africa truly is. So during the forum, let them have those conversations as well. I'm sure we'll be there to also give our support. Thank you so much, Mary. Beautiful submissions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. What does Governor Fubara's return mean for the future of Rivers State after 6 months of suspension and a shift in leadership? Join us after the break for this conversation. Don't go anywhere.